Program 2 out the first for today, December the 9th, 2022. I'm Ryan Ballingy. Good to have you with us. We are presented by our friends at French Lake Resort in French Lake, Indiana. A couple stories, a couple topics for you today, as the name of the show implies. If you are interested in listening to more of me for some reason, I do a weekly podcast called the 19th Hole Golf Show. Just did an episode just before this. The weekly show features the CEO of First Tee, Greg McLaughlin, talking about 25 years of the program. Really fun interview. It's a little bit more of a kind of deeper dive show. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out wherever you get your podcasts, and I would appreciate it. But we've got two topics to get to, and a happy Friday to everybody. Hope you have a great weekend. We have the QBE shootout starting today. It's actually already underway down in Naples, the two-person team event, 12 teams, 2 LPGA players, and 22 PGA Tour players, although there's Steve Stricker, who's a Champions Tour player technically, so however you work that out. But 3 different games over 3 different days. Best combined score between all of those is a winner. Obviously lots of birdies, lots of eagles, because it's a team event. They have a scramble round, which is really fun to watch. So if you got some golf to watch this weekend, that's something to catch. Saturday night, we have the match 7 that will imply into one of the topics we talk about today here in a little bit. But you've got Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy taking on Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. That's going to be an exciting thing. It's at Pelican Golf Club, a Ross design, under the lights, 7 p.m. Hosts an LPGA event, which has now been rebranded the Annika. It's the last full field event of the year for the LPGA before they get to the CME Group Tour Championship, which, interestingly enough, is played at Tiburon Golf Club, where they're playing the QBE this week. So that's a little bit of how small the golf world is. Even though it's huge, it's all kind of tied together a little bit. So we've got that going on as well. And then if you are watching it, you've got the Alfred Dunhill Championship in South Africa, which is co-sanctioned between the DP World Tour and the Sunshine Tour. That's a fun event to watch. It's because it's located in a nature preserve. So there's Leopard Creek Country Club or Golf Club or whatever it is. And then there's a part of a massive nature reserve. You can see all kinds of really cool animals on TV. They have an event, obviously, that's golf related going on alongside of it. It's a pretty interesting field because you've got a bunch of LIV guys playing in it, and I haven't seen any of these guys on the LIV side playing since the last tournament at the end of October. So they've got 2 rounds in the books, couple to go. Scott Jamieson, who's had a really good year on the DP World Tour, leads through 2 rounds, won 13 under par. We got a bunch of guys, 3 guys in second place, including Eddie Pepperell, 3 back. And then a whole ton of folks from South Africa, Dean Burmester, MJ Defoe. Aaron Cockrell shot 65 today. He's Canadian. Oliver Becker, who played, I believe, 1 start on LIV, maybe it was 2. And then Louis Oosthuizen is tied for 10th. He's 5 back, and I think he is the closest permanent LIV guy anywhere near the field. Charles Schwartzel, interestingly enough, said yesterday, or maybe it was after Thursday's round, that he had broken one of the rules of golf by accident and got docked 2-stroke penalty. I don't know where he wound up, but he's obviously not near the top of the leaderboard. And we don't really have anything else otherwise. We've got some PGA Tour Latino America that's almost impossible to find. At least watch Leopard Creek, fun morning viewing for you and potentially your kids to watch the animals on Saturday and Sunday morning. So full slate of golf over the course of the weekend. Let's dig in on the match 7. We've got Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy, Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, under the lights. All sounds very, very exciting. Get to see Tiger Woods play. He's going to be able to ride in a cart, so there will probably be some plantar fasciitis talk, of course. That's why he didn't play in the Hero World Challenge, because you have to walk in that tournament. This is an exhibition. So is the PNC Championship, effectively. You can use a cart in both, so Tiger's pain will probably be some kind of issue, and it's going to be brought up, of course. But at least he'll be able to transport, and all 4 players will transport in carts from shot to shot. And they've got that cool setup where they do it with TNT and Turner, where they'll put the cameras in the cart and they talk to them with the earpiece. That's a nice thing. It being under the lights, that's the first time they've done the match under the lights the whole time. The first match with Tiger and Phil ended under the lights, and they had that playoff hole as well. So that was all done under the lights. But this whole thing is supposed to be done under the lights at Pelican Golf Club, which that's pretty cool. I love night golf. I wish there was some kind of night golf tournament that wasn't just an exhibition, but here we are. This is our chance to watch it this year. So hope you check it out. But from Tiger's perspective, he's going to be making an equipment change going into this event and then the PNC Championship the following week in Orlando when he's going to play with his son Charlie and see if they can go from 7th to 2nd to 1st in the third try of playing the tournament. So Tiger's change is he is changing his golf ball, which you follow the history of Tiger Woods' career. Tiger changing his golf ball is a pretty big deal. Tiger going to a solid core ball right around 2000 was probably somewhat instrumental in some of the distance gains that he saw, in some of the performance that he enjoyed in 2000. He was well ahead of his peers in that regard. Many were reluctant to switch. I think that could have given him some assistance, but he's still Tiger Woods. He's way better than everybody else. But some assistance in the time period where he enjoyed the Tiger Slam. But he's been with Bridgestone Golf for, 3-4 years now. And in that time, he has played their spinnier tour ball, which is now called the Tour B XS. And he has long talked about playing a spinnier ball, one that spins more off of the driver face, off of every club in the bag, because he likes that control that he can apply to the golf ball, whether to add spin, take it off. That's important to him. However, for this exhibition and probably for the PNC Championship, he is going to be using their Tour B X ball. I played both. I enjoy both. They're both good golf balls, but the Tour BX is a little bit firmer, goes a little bit farther, doesn't spin quite as much with any club in the bag, but certainly with those scoring clubs and greenside spin. So you lose a little bit there. So why is he doing that? Well, it sounds like he's trying to get a little extra distance off the tee, and that could mean as much for him as 10 yards off the tee, going from the BXS, which he has helped design in multiple iterations, and then going to the Tour BX, which will be a little bit of a degradation in greenside spin. He won't be able to check it quite as easily, but you can see reasons for doing this. One, he hasn't played professional golf in a while, maybe a little bit rusty. Two, he's playing against younger guys who can hit it as far as he can, if not farther by a substantial margin, so he wants to keep up with them, at least keep it kind of respectable in a TV exhibition. That's probably part of the ego play here, but also trying to keep up with Rory McIlroy, who's an incredible driver of the golf ball. And not to say the Tiger hasn't been in his life, but he's 46. I mean, we're not getting any younger here. So he needs the extra distance. And then playing with Charlie, they're playing at sea level, obviously, in both these things. The Pelican Golf Club's near Tampa. The PNC Championship is in the Orlando area. They're at sea level. The ball doesn't go as far. He lives in Florida. He knows that. But maybe getting a little extra distance in the father-son, former father-son, now whatever it is. I mean, parent special relationship, whatever it is. But that tournament might help them out in the scramble because obviously Charlie's 13. So a little extra distance could not hurt Tiger Woods, maybe giving them a better shot off the tee if he winds up driving the ball pretty well. So changing there. And Elliot Mello, who is the marketing manager for Bridgestone Golf, and we've had him on programming on this channel before, on the station before. Good guy. He was saying that he thinks this is more a temporary change. This isn't a permanent change. It's a concern with him for distance, and he thinks the drop-off in greenside spin isn't so dramatic that it'll be costly to Tiger. He was working with it at Albany Golf Club during the Hero. Even though he didn't play in the tournament, he was working on his game at that time. We will see what all of that looks like. I'm pretty excited for the match. I got to be honest with you. I mean, you put four of the best golfers in the world in an exhibition. You mic them up. They all give each other grief. JT and Tiger have a really good relationship. They have a lot of fun together. Obviously, Spieth is very entertaining to watch. You may not love that he talks to his ball on every shot, but he is pretty entertaining, whether you find that fun or just mentally scarring to listen to him talk to himself the whole time. So there's that. And then obviously Tiger, great trash talker. Rory McIlroy, very candid. Pretty good trash talker, but very candid. Likes to have a lot of fun on the golf course. It should be a great exhibition. It should be worth your time to watch. If you're planning your Saturday around sports, which tends to happen to me, I'll be watching Army-Navy during the afternoon, and then I'm going to tune in the golf at night. And it should be a pretty good little Saturday. Maybe a little college basketball interspersed between. Everything is on TNT and TBS, the usual suspects for the match events. And we'll see what happens. But this is probably the highest profile one since the first one. Because you had Tiger and Phil, and that was a big deal. And then you've had subsequent ones with Tiger and or Phil, with a partner, with you have Manning and Brady, which was actually kind of fun, especially as a pandemic event. And then the ones you've had kind of since are, yeah, I mean, they're there. They're fine. But Phil's obviously out of the loop of these things moving forward because of his involvement with LIV. And the PGA Tour has to kind of sign off on this, so Phil can't be involved. And that's a whole series of politics unto itself. But needless to say, Phil's not going to be involved anymore. He doesn't need the money. That part of it also applies. Why would he do that? So you've got a future of this that could involve these 4 players. So now that you're bringing them in this method, maybe you have Rory versus Spieth. Maybe you have a 3-person match. Maybe you have, I would personally, this is what I would love to see. I'd love to see 18-hole Wolf. I think people will go nuts for it. It would be different. It would be fun. You could have so much fun going lone wolf with these guys. You could do blind lone wolf. It would be great. It would be a great game if you did it. And you could, if you wanted, you could make different rules so that holes 17 and 18, if you had a foursome, could be special toss-ups, or you could do it as a threesome. Everyone gets 6 turns. That could also be really interesting. I would love, love, love to have that. So if anyone is listening that produces these things, I would very much appreciate a wolf match. It could be under the lights. I don't care. But that would be what I would like to see next. But let's get through Saturday. Let's see Tiger play. Let's get excited about that. All right, second story for today. And this is courtesy of Dan Rappaport, who is now at Barstool. He left Digest to go to Barstool. And he's been doing all kinds of stuff with them, doing some golf writing, but very prolific tweeter. Something I have absolutely gotten out of the habit of this year, and probably for the betterment of my life, to be honest. But he still tweets, I still lurk, and I tweet sometimes occasionally. And something he shared, and I don't know the source for this. I don't know if this is his writing or something else. But Dan tweeted about Hudson Swafford, who went to LIV. And probably, again, one of those, yeah, I get it, decisions in moving to LIV, because Swafford's won a couple times on the PGA Tour. He was a name, but not a big name. He goes through these big stretches where he's terrible and not very good. And then he wins, and then you're like, hey, maybe he's pretty good. And now he's moved to LIV, and he remarked about the community feedback that he has been given. And I'm pretty sure he's been blackballed from a club, if I remember hearing that right. That is not 100% verified, but I remember hearing that somewhere, so that seems to stand up. But here's a quote from him, and again, I don't know where this came from, and I'm going off of Dan here. Could be his writing, don't know. But Swafford says, quote, "There's definitely some pushback. I think it's crazy how some guys have made it personal. I don't know if it's jealousy. They didn't want to take a leap of faith that they didn't trust LIV Golf, parenthetically. I don't know what their thinking is. I basically switched jobs. I took a different job somewhere at a startup. I don't get the personal vendettas that I've come across towards me. It's been quite interesting." And Dan kind of positions this as, he says, Hudson Swafford's basically your friend who left working at a bank to take a job with a startup. A true leap of faith. Joined a couple guys working out of their garage because he believed in the vision. And he's making fun of the notion that LIV calls itself a startup. Norman has called it a startup. And I'm pretty sure even the PIF guys have called it a startup at different points. And in some sense, yes, that's true. It has been started up. It is a new business, of course. However, as a lot of people understand, and probably Dan understands, startups, even though Dan's family is quite wealthy, as a startup, you assume, is not necessarily the best capitalized and has short staff and doesn't have a lot of resources. That's how a lot of people understand startups. I mean, Golf Newsnet has been around a long time now. I mean, I've been doing this as my own job for more than 5.5 years. And I'm still very much a startup because I don't have really any permanent employees. I have lots of people I contract with. I do a lot of the work myself. I do pretty much everything that you see on the website and on the station. I mean, I wear a lot of hats. That's how startups work. And so the assumption is startup means you're killing yourself on hours. you don't have a whole lot of money. Maybe you've got some funding, but you're bootstrapping it along. I mean, GNN's bootstrapped. I'm done this all myself with whatever little resources that I have, and gotten to this point. So the idea that, to me, LIV calls itself a startup is funny, because that's not what my experience has been in the startup. However, and I want to point this out because it's important, G.A. Lee, who's a friend who's been on a couple of different podcasts of mine, she's one of the co-founders of Sportsbox AI, which is a really interesting, cool app that actually just started being available for consumers to use to measure their golf swing in real time and get information about the quality of their swing and drills they can do, all this stuff. That's not a commercial for that, just kind of placing her. And she's worked at Topgolf. She was a VP there. And so she's building this company as the CEO of it, just doing a great job. And she points out to Dan, there are startups that are well-funded. If Elon Musk started a new company, it would be a startup and a very well-funded one. And then it goes on to say, it's not an endorsement of LIV, but she's just pointing out. And she's right. Startup, as we understand it often, does not necessarily imply no money and no resources. There are startups that have lots of money and lots of resources, and they burn that money up and they burn it right into the ground. That also happens. So I know it's easy to make fun of Hudson Swafford and what he said, and I'm still going to make fun of him for it to a degree in a second. But just because you're a startup doesn't mean you don't have money. Doesn't mean you're not well capitalized. Amazon was a startup and was tremendously well capitalized, and one of the greatest shareholder letters ever written was from Jeff Bezos explaining why the valuation of the company shouldn't be based on their ability to turn a profit, but rather the potential of the company in the long haul. And that set themselves up for a decade and a half of trying to finally make a profit, and then they got there. So as to say, being a startup does not mean having no money. That all said, it's hilarious that you would consider this a startup in the traditional sense. I mean, you have obviously a tremendous amount of capitalization, and a sovereign wealth fund is providing the capitalization, has guaranteed billions and billions of dollars of commitment. They have hired, if you want to be truthful, some of the best. They've hired some of the best professional golfers in the world. They've hired people who are not as good as Cameron Smith and Dustin Johnson. They've hired Hudson Swaffords of the world. That doesn't mean they're not great golfers. They're just not the best of the best. They've hired tremendously talented people on the television side. Whether you agree with those moves those people made or not, they are tremendously talented. Their services have been purchased. They have committed lots and lots of money to putting together broadcasts that have a really good quality to them. Again, whether you like the golf or not, it's not like they're running a golf tournament stream off of 5 iPhones and linking them together somehow and putting it on Twitch. I mean, this is not that kind of operation. So yes, technically it's a startup, also not a startup. But to go to what Swafford really said, and not to be semantic, it is interesting probably to him, and also probably disheartening to him, that so many PGA Tour players are kind of not interested in dealing with him anymore, or any LIV guy for that matter. And to go and put your hands up in the air and go, well, I don't understand why anyone's upset with me. I just went and took a different job. Well, that's not really the case. For one, you took a different job for millions of dollars and walked away from the traditional professional golf ecosystem. That could absolutely upset some people, particularly the people in the existing professional golf ecosystem, which, by the way, LIV is maybe not explicitly trying to destroy, but in a way trying to destroy. So it would be natural for those people to want to be upset, to want to feel like the people who have made the change to LIV should be cast out, that they should not be welcomed back with open arms, that they should be pariahs, and that's how they're going to be treated, not only as long as LIV exists, however long that is, but when their careers are over, whether that's with LIV or the PGA Tour or both. And I think that's it, because if the perception from the PGA Tour is, and many of their players is, LIV is out to get us. LIV is out to ruin us. They want to put us on the shelf. They want to make us the second tier tour without good resources, with weak sponsors, with weak fan interest. They want to be competition. They don't want to be complementary, even though Norman has kind of said that. They don't want to be complementary. They want to be superior. So if you go from one team to another, your heated rival, of course you're going to get some blowback. That happens. That happens in every sport. That happens in every walk of life. If you walk away from something you work on and go to a different team, and that team is actively trying to hurt your old team, it's not going to go so well. I don't, it is what it is. I mean, last night watching Thursday Night Football, I think a lot of people were probably rooting for Baker Mayfield when he got in the game and playing with the Rams because, one, he wasn't playing a rival, really. I mean, a rival of the Browns or the Panthers, for that matter. I mean, that wasn't involved. I think a lot of folks in Cleveland appreciated whatever it is that Baker did in helping elevate that team toward a better status. And he was in a position where he didn't go from a good spot to an even crazier spot, an even wealthier spot. He went from Brown starter to getting shoved aside for Deshaun Watson, going to the Panthers, playing on a not good team and a horrible system, and then getting kicked to the curb, released, I guess in favor of Sam Darnold, and then gets picked up by the Rams and he goes and wins a game 36 hours after being part of the team. A lot of people are going to root for that. A little bit different for Hudson Swafford, who, relatively speaking to the peers that he has, is kind of an underachiever. Maybe an overachiever, I don't know. But a guy who's not a huge brand name and then goes to LIV and signs for a boatload of money, has a guarantee to play. He's going to make several $1 million, if not $10, $15 million in the end of this. And I don't think that Swafford's wrong in saying there's probably some degree of professional or personal jealousy there. But there's also a degree of contempt. Because I'm willing to wager that LIV talked to attempted to talk to every player ahead of Hudson Swafford in the official World Golf Ranking. Every single one of them. And they probably made an offer. And an overwhelming number of them said no, for whatever reason. Whether the financing was too troubling, they didn't like the setup, didn't believe in the concept, whatever it was. But there were a lot of people that were probably asked to join LIV before Hudson Swafford. And so I don't think it necessarily boils down to personal and professional jealousy. It boils down to the choice that you made and them disapproving of it. Again, that's just kind of how it is. We make choices in life. Some are good, some are bad, some are good for us, some are bad for others. But you kind of have to live with the consequences of it. And I think, getting closer to a year into this, as we get into the early part of next year and next spring, maybe there will be a little bit more reflection on it, but we'll see what happens. It's always an evolving story. That's going to do it for us today on 2 at the First. Thank you so much for your time, whether you're listening or watching the show. If you check us out on a podcast service, please give us a nice review and tell someone about us, about the show. It helps us reach more people. That's going to do it for our week. We won't have any weekend shows. We'll talk about the match on Monday, as well as everything that went on in South Africa, the end of Q Series on the LPGA, who got cards, and we'll talk about the QBE shootout as well. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next time on 2 at the First.